Ever wonder if God really hears our prayers? When all hope seems lost, in a raging storm, a dark forest, or a deathbed, does He show up to save us? I've gathered 5 true, tear-jerking stories about how God touches our lives, from a desperate mother in a disaster to me when I died for 4 minutes and met Him. These tales will make you ask, have I missed my own moment with God? Stick with me to find out. You won't look away. Story 1: The Mother and the Miracle in the Storm. Imagine you're a single mom in a rickety wooden house in Florida, holding your 3 small kids tight as the storm of the century hits. That's the story of Maria Gonzalez, 40, in 1992, when Hurricane Andrew tore through South America. This is the first proof of how God can turn disaster into a miracle, and it brought tears to my eyes the first time I heard it. Maria wasn't rich. She worked at a local bakery to feed her 3 kids, Juan, 10, Sophia, 7, and little Rosa, just 3. Their wooden house in Homestead was old, the roof patched with holes, but it was all they had. When the news warned of Hurricane Andrew, Maria couldn't afford to flee. She just hugged her kids, bolted the door, and prayed. "I wasn't good at praying," she said later, "but that night I just screamed, 'God, save us!'" The storm hit at midnight, wind roaring like a beast, floodwater pouring through the cracks. The roof shook, then caved in, crashing onto the kitchen table where Maria and the kids hid. She held them tight, water up to her knees, thinking this was the end. "I cried, but I kept praying," she said. "I told the kids, 'Don't be scared, God will protect us.'" But inside, she wasn't sure He heard. Then a loud boom rang out. A huge pine tree in the yard fell, slamming into the house. Maria thought it was over, but a miracle happened. Instead of crushing them, the tree landed sideways, blocking the floodwater rushing in, forming a natural wall. The water stopped rising, and though the house trembled, it didn't collapse. Maria and her kids sat there, shivering, soaked in cold water, but alive. She said, "I felt like God sent that tree to shield us." Morning came, and rescuers found them, drenched, terrified, but unharmed. The house was wrecked, but all 4 survived. When asked, Maria just cried and said, "I don't know how to explain it, but I know God heard me. He put that tree right where it needed to be, right when it mattered." The story spread through the community, and even now she tears up retelling it, thanking God for that night's miracle. What's the lesson from Maria? It's that God can turn the worst into hope, even when we see no way out. A fallen tree wasn't random. It was an answer to a desperate mother's prayer. Ever think a miracle might be around you, waiting to be noticed? Story 2: The Boy and the Voice in the Forest. If Maria's story showed you God in a storm, this next one takes you into a dark forest, where an 8-year-old boy found light through him. This is Tommy Larson's story from 2005 in Oregon, and it's my second proof that God never abandons us, even when we're most lost. When I heard this, I couldn't hold back tears. The innocence and faith of a child touched my heart so deeply. Tommy was an active kid, living in Portland with his parents. That summer, his family went camping in Deschutes National Forest, a vast place with towering pines and rushing streams. On the second day, Tommy chased a rabbit into the woods, straying from the campsite without anyone noticing. When his parents realized, he was gone. They shouted his name, searched frantically, but the forest was too thick, and Tommy didn't answer. Rescue teams came, but after a day, hope started fading. Tommy later said he panicked when he knew he was lost. He wandered, calling for his parents, hearing only wind and birds. Night fell, freezing cold, and he hugged his thin jacket, sitting under a tree, sobbing. "I prayed," he said, voice so innocent. "I told God, I don't want to die here. Please help me." He didn't know if God heard, but he kept pleading, like his parents taught him in Sunday school. By the second day, Tommy was exhausted. He collapsed by a stream, hungry, cold, thinking he wouldn't make it. Then he heard a voice, not loud, not scary, but gentle, like his mom's lullabies. It said, "Don't be afraid, Tommy. Go toward the sun." He looked up, saw sunlight, through the trees, and though he had no strength, he stood and walked. "I don't know why," he said, "but I believed it was God, 'cause no one was there." He walked for hours, legs trembling, until rescuers found him near a trail, 3 miles from where he'd gotten lost. They hugged him, shouting, "The boy's alive!" Tommy reunited with his parents, who'd prayed non-stop for 2 days. His mom, Linda, cried as she recalled, "I knelt by the tent, begging God to bring Tommy back, and he did, through that voice." Doctors called it a miracle he survived nearly 48 hours without food or water. When asked, Tommy just smiled and said, "God told me to follow the sun, so I did." No doubt, no fear, just a child's simple faith. His story spread through Portland, and every time it's retold, Linda says, "It was God's miracle. He didn't let my boy stay lost forever." What's Tommy's lesson? It's that God is always near, guiding us through the dark, even when we can't see him. A quiet voice in the woods wasn't a hallucination. It was his unseen hand bringing a boy home. Ever hear a voice in your heart pushing you forward? Maybe it's God, and you just need to listen like Tommy did. Story 3, The Soldier and the Letter from Heaven. From Maria's storm to Tommy's forest, we've seen God show up in desperate moments. Now, let's step onto a Vietnam battlefield in 1968, where a young soldier got a message from God in a way no one expected. This is James Carter's story. No relation to me, but that name made me feel closer to him. It's my third proof that God can use loved ones we've lost to speak to us, and it choked me up thinking about the sacrifice and hope in it. James, 25, was an infantryman from Texas, drafted in 1967. He left behind his mom and an older brother, Robert, also a soldier, who died the year before in Da Nang. James carried Robert's photo in his pocket, like a lucky charm. In March 1968, during an ambush in Hue, James took bullets, one to the chest, one to the leg. He fell, blood pooling, and his squad thought he was done. But in that haze between life and death, a miracle happened. James said he found himself in a green field. No gunfire, no smoke, just strange peace. Then Robert appeared, in a clean uniform, no wounds, smiling like when they'd played ball in the backyard. Robert handed him a letter saying, "God says you're not done yet. Keep living, Jimmy." James opened it, but before he could read, he felt pulled back. He woke in a field hospital, doctors stunned he'd survived after losing so much blood. The letter wasn't real. No paper, no ink. But James believed it was God's message, sent through his brother. "I saw Robert clear as day," he said, eyes tearing up. He didn't say much, but I knew God wanted me here for a reason. James recovered over months. Though his left leg stayed partly paralyzed, he returned to Texas, tucked Robert's photo into a memory box, and lived on. Not just for himself, but for his brother and the faith that saved him. His family wasn't shocked. His mom, Helen, said, "I prayed every night for God to bring Jimmy home, and I believe Robert helped him." James's story spread among veterans, inspiring those who'd lost comrades. He said, "I live because of that letter, because God wanted me to tell people He doesn't abandon us, even in war." What's James's lesson? It's that God can use those we've lost as bridges, sending messages to remind us of our purpose. A dream letter wasn't just imagination. It was His will for James to go on. Ever feel like a loved one who's gone is trying to tell you something? Maybe they're bringing God's words, and you just need to open your heart to hear. Story 4. The Old Priest and the Unquenchable Candle. Step into a small Texas church on Christmas Eve 1980, where an old priest received his final sign from God before passing. This is the story of Father Michael O'Connor, 78, who'd spent his life serving faith. And it's my fourth proof that God always answers prayers, even in our last hours. This tale moved me to tears with the peace and love it holds. Father Michael was the priest of St. Anne's in a little town near San Antonio. Thin, with white hair, his eyes still sparkled when he preached. That year, he was gravely ill, liver cancer, and knew his time was short. Though weak, he went to the church daily, kneeling at the altar, praying for his flock and asking God one thing: "Let me see you before I go." He didn't demand angels or dazzling light, just a small sign that God was near. On Christmas Eve, Father Michael came to the church alone. The congregation had left after midnight mass, leaving him with a small tree and extinguished candles. He knelt, trembling from cold and sickness, whispering, "Lord, I'm so tired. If you're here, show me." Cold wind blew through a broken window. The old church couldn't afford repairs. But then a miracle happened. A candle on the altar, unlit by anyone, flared to life. The flame was small but steady, unwavering despite the gusts. Father Michael looked up, tears streaming down. He told the altar boy later, "I felt God in that candle, warm, close, like He was holding me." He sat there all night, watching it, and for the first time in months, he felt no pain. The next morning, Christmas Day, the altar boy found him gone at the altar, hands clutching his Bible, a faint smile on his lips. The candle still burned, though the wax was nearly spent. St. Anne's congregation mourned Father Michael, but not for long. The altar boy, Thomas, said, "It was God's sign to take him home. That candle staying lit was Him saying, 'I'm here.'" The parishioners believed Father Michael saw God as he'd wished, and his story became a Christmas tradition. At the church, they light a special candle for him, called Father Michael's Candle. What's Father Michael's lesson? It's that God answers prayers with small signs, bringing peace even as we face death. A candle burning through wind wasn't chance. It was His love for a man who'd given his life to faith. Ever notice a little sign from God in your tough times? Maybe He's there, waiting for you to see. Story 5. Me and 4 Minutes with God. Now I want to tell the final story. My own Emily Carter, 31, from New Year's Eve 2025 in Chicago. This is my 5th proof that God can turn death into life, using pain to teach us love and listening. After losing my dad in December 2024, I thought I'd lost everything, but 4 minutes clinically dead changed it all. And this story is one I can't keep to myself. It brings tears every time I recall it, but it also gives me hope. My dad, John Carter, died December 15, 2024 from lung cancer. He was the man who sang Jingle Bells every Christmas, but chemo took him in just 6 months. I was there when he passed, holding his hand, but I couldn't say goodbye. My throat locked up. After, I lived in loneliness, clutching his memory box, a Christmas sweater, a cigarette pack, and regret for not saying, "I love you." New Year's Eve 2025, I couldn't take it. I drank Dad's leftover whiskey, drove out into the snowy cold, no destination, just escaping pain. I was drunk, out of control, and didn't see the pickup until it was too late. Glass shattered, my car spun, and I thought, "Dad, I'm coming to you." Then I died. Heart stopped for 4 minutes, the rescuers later said. But I didn't see. Darkness. I stood outside my body, saw my corpse in the car, then got pulled into a gentle light. There, God was present. Not a figure, but a warmth enveloping me. I saw Dad afar, on a snowy field in his Christmas sweater, waving with a smile. I yelled, "Dad!" but couldn't get close. God said, He said goodbye in a soul's way. He showed me 3 secrets. Souls send energy when they leave. They linger through small signs, and they want me to live on. I woke in the ambulance, in pain but alive. A miracle, the doctor said. Since then, I've changed. No more drinking. I started a journal of Dad's signs, an odd breeze, a dream of him waving. I called Mom, told her everything, and she cried. I felt him too. The wind chime rang New Year's Eve. I realized, Dad's not far, he's here in little moments, and God gave me a second chance to live with purpose. What's my lesson? It's that God doesn't just save us from death. He teaches us to hear goodbyes from those we love. I cried knowing Dad's still near, and I live each day to share this, as He wanted. Ever feel a sign from someone you've lost? Maybe God's using them to tell you, keep living and listen. And we've just walked through 5 touching stories about God. A mother saved in a storm, a boy hearing His voice in the forest, a soldier given a letter from heaven, a priest with an unquenchable candle, and me, 4 minutes with God after losing my dad. Each story proves He's always there, in disasters, darkness, war, final hours, and our pain. I share these not just for you to hear, but to feel His love, so deep it shakes your heart. I grew up Catholic, and these moments remind me God isn't just a concept in the Bible. He's alive, close, and always working for us. Do you see Him in your life? A prayer answered, an unexpected sign, a comforting dream? I believe He's waiting for you to notice, like He did for me. If these stories touched you, drop a comment below. How have you felt God in your life? Hit subscribe to catch more faith-filled stories and tap the bell for the next video. Let's spread His love together, because when you believe, you'll see Him everywhere. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.